Hello. It says I'm live, so I'm going to roll with that and just assume. And hello, welcome. Oh my goodness, there's people here and everything. If you're here, say hi to me in the chat and let me know you can hear me. This is my first time live with this mic. So hopefully all is well. I'm so glad to be here and to be doing this. I'm so excited. I have a loose agenda of things planned, and hopefully you can hear me because nobody has said anything in the chat yet. Or no, never mind. It's top chat. So can I see live chat? Nope, that's still empty. Dang it. And now nobody's listening. Now 2 people are here. I wonder if I can be heard. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Okay. We've got the green light. We're ready to rock and roll. So that's Maddie in the chat. She's our moderator. She's going to be keeping an eye on things with me, for me. And yeah, so that is going to hopefully work out good because I am going to try to stay in the flow of these energies while sipping my coffee, while telling you all the things. I want to take just a little bit though here at the beginning and talk about some other stuff, like just, 5 to 10 minutes of let's hang out and get in the groove. Yes. Okay. And from there, we can dive into these topics. So I'm also going to put in the chat, actually, since there's only a couple people, let me know which of these topics, that was not a real poll. Let me know which of these topics you're most excited about hearing about or most looking forward to. Jupiter in Pisces, Venus retrograde, and Mars conjunct the Great Attractor. Those are the 3 topics that I plan to cover today. And so I'll start with whichever one we want to start with. And I have no doubt that the unfolding will be lovely. So yeah, let me know in the chat which you're most looking forward to. And from there, I have something that I found a new spiritual teacher yesterday, and new to me anyway. She has obviously been doing her work for many, many decades and has a beautiful vibration. She technically calls herself a Buddhist teacher. And so when you listen to her material, it's all based in the Buddhist philosophy. I myself don't personally subscribe to any one philosophy, but her vibration is legit. So I do highly recommend Tara Brach, I think is how you say her name, Tarabrach. And I will make sure that the link to the video that I watched yesterday ends up in the description of this video if you would like to check that out. It was about an hour and 20 minutes long and was so good, so abundant in terms of all it takes sometimes to feel better is a shift in our mindset, a shift in how we see the world. And as far as that goes, she had some really beautiful things to say. So I do highly recommend that you check that video out. I know from personal experience that there is so much spiritual content available on YouTube. And I also see this little session that I'm going to do every Friday as a way to share with you kind of the best of the best of what I've found. And finding her work yesterday was, like I said, like radical abundance of the perspective that she holds is truly amazing. So I highly recommend. From there, I am just going to take it from the top, and I have my office door open, so my animals, I'm sure, will be perfectly well behaved and not make any ruckus. I'm just kidding. They're already making ruckus. But that's okay because we're going to roll with it. And that's going to be the theme of these astrology and coffee sessions. And so, yeah, before I get into before I get into these topics that we're going to talk about, I do want to kind of set the stage a little bit with why I'm doing these sessions in the first place and what the point of this work is as far as how I'm seeing it, how I'm approaching it. Also, in the sense that I am a very long-winded individual and I am coming to accept that, there are also chapter tabs in the bottom in the description box. So if you want to skip to whatever section you came here for, by all means, do that. Hey, you guys, settle. Okay. So what brings us here? What brings us to this space where Carly is offering these words? For me, this has been a long time coming. This is my first YouTube live stream, but it is not my first time being in front of people. It's not my first time wanting to share a message that I'm passionate about. Those themes have been playing out basically my whole life. And at this point, I'm understanding that my life's purpose is essentially to learn all the things and share what I've learned. So that is ideally what we're here to do in these sessions, is to kind of recap, like, where are we at this point under these astrological energies? You know, the historic quote of "as above, so below." Like, as we watch these energies play out in the sky, we can understand greater on a collective level what's going on, and on a personal level what's going on. So to be able to understand is huge. To bring awareness to what's actually going on, what are the energies at play, that's huge. So there is like kind of a whole what's the point to astrology in general, and that is basically to make the unconscious conscious. Like, ultimately, why we're studying astrology in the first place is to gain a greater understanding of ourselves, a greater understanding of the people that we love, and these crazy freaking times that we're getting to live through. Holy moly, like, divine timing. We all, I believe, chose to be here right now. And so when we see maybe what looks like the shit hitting the fan in terms of what's happening in society right now, it's also very exciting to look at the energetic forces that are bringing about these critical turning points that we're experiencing, and how we can better look at these things and understand that this is happening for us. It's happening for our benefit, for our evolution. And so for all of this, kind of that bigger picture roots back to, we came here for a reason. We have a purpose, we have a mission. Our soul had a very clear picture of like what it was that we were ultimately trying to experience with this path that we carved out for ourselves in this life. Like, there's a reason that we're here. And I personally believe that, like, the meaning of life, the purpose of life, is just to remember like what that reason even was. And that's why I'm saying, like, this last year of 2021 and all of these energies that I've been tuned into this last year, it has very much led me to an understanding of, my purpose is very simple: to enjoy the learning of all the things that I care about, and then talk about them and explain them to anybody who cares to listen, and rinse and repeat and like do it again. And I'm already doing the learning part. That's so fun. So the knowledge is just sitting there. So adding on this piece where I do the talking part and explain things that are going on right now, that's the addition that came on January 2nd. That's like one of the pieces that we're going to talk about, is Mars being conjunct the Great Attractor, which happened on January 2nd. Also, what was that? I don't know. Hard to say. Also on the 2nd was the Capricorn New Moon. And those energies, seems like January 2nd was huge as far as like getting a glimpse at what is it that we're ultimately trying to create. Like, what is the point of your life? Like, why are you here? What is it, big picture, that you're trying to create? You don't have to know all the details. You don't have to like have a word for it or have it named or like a path to get there. You just need a picture in your mind of like, what is the ultimate point of your being? And all of these energies that we're going to talk about today, that is kind of where we are as a mass consciousness in terms of this energy soup that we're sitting in right now. The question at the top of the list is, why are you here? What was the reason that you came forward to be here right now? Because you had one, and it's just a matter of remembering what it was and to reconnect to the parts of ourself that know that reason still very strongly, to have never forgotten it. As humans, we get sucked into the Maya, into the physical, the earth realm, the smell it, hear it, taste it, touch it version that's so delicious that it's, of course, it's distracting. That makes perfect sense. But there is a deeper part of ourselves. There's a bigger part of ourselves that is not distracted by the Maya. It's very intent on doing whatever your soul put your physical vessel forth to do in the first place. So showing up, like, what is it that you show up to in your life? That is something where, when you say like, what is your purpose? That's a very pointed question that maybe you have an answer to that and maybe you don't. And if you don't, that's nothing to be anxious about. It's just like, you can really simplify it to, what are the things that you prioritize in a day? What are the things that you do? And from there, that's a pretty good look at your current belief system and your current belief about what your purpose is. And that's like a whole tangent as far as like, how satisfied are we with our lives? And that's ultimately, as far as I can see it, the goal of following our authentic selves and like figuring out, who are we and why are we here? Like, what was the whole point of us being here? And with that, there's true satisfaction in showing up in the world as that person. So carving out the time to be that person, prioritizing the activities that that person does. So I'm very much going through this myself. And so that's also kind of a disclaimer over these sessions in general, is I'm a big fan of just telling my version of what happened to me personally. And from there, if you're able to mirror it back to your experience and see some of these themes playing out in your world, I think that's great. But as far as my understanding and what I can convey and communicate, like, really, it's just my own experience and what I'm learning and what I'm seeing playing out as far as my experience goes, for lots of reasons. And if you're into astrology, you know a bit about the natal chart because of the houses. So like, whatever time of day you were born controls your rising sign, the houses, all of that. So even if we had the same exact placement, like let's say your sun was in Gemini like mine is, then mine's in the third house, maybe yours is in the 12th house, that's going to look completely different. So even having the same sign placements as somebody else, the exact timing, like your unique energy, there is nobody else like you. You came forward because your individual essence was needed here. And so showing up as like, who is that person? Who is that individual essence that my soul wanted me to be? That's like the most creative thing we'll ever do. I think it was like Ra Uru who said that, who's like the creator of human design. The most creative thing we ever get to do in life is discover who we are. And how you choose to show up in a day is kind of like an embodiment of your belief structure. And that's like really kind of setting the stage for this guy down here, as far as like Mars and conjunct the Great Attractor and like what all of that means as far as Sagittarius. Which, I mean, maybe we just go ahead and cover that, since, yeah, why not? We'll just go with the flow. So the Great Attractor is a point in the sky that happens to exist at 14 degrees Sagittarius. Technically, it has like not really anything specific to do with Sagittarius, other than that is where it's located. That's its address. So is in that Sagittarius chunk in the sky. I also want to read you then, this link that I'm reading from will also be in the description, along with a couple others, because this is getting into something that like I'm not huge into, like the really technical astronomy side of what's going on in space. And this is definitely veering in that direction a little bit, as far as understanding like what even is the Great Attractor. So reading from this article, located at 14 degrees of Sagittarius, the Great Attractor is a mysterious galactic anomaly, appearing to be a massive concentration of mass and energy. It hungrily devours neighboring galaxies at the impossible to imagine speed of 600 kilometers per second. Pausing just for my own experience, I would caution you at trying to imagine 600 kilometers per second. It like almost instantly makes me car sick to do that. It makes me like motion sick to try to imagine like how fast that is. Kilometers, like obviously I'm in the US and like I work in miles and I'm not 100% sure how the two convert, but like 600, that's a lot. So like at least a few hundred miles per second, that just is like unfathomable from like a human perspective. Anyways, this is a concentration of mass thousands of times greater than our Milky Way, yet accurate understandings elude our scientists, and the Great Attractor remains incalculable and incomprehensible. It is thought to be at the gravitational center of the Laniakea supercluster. That's my best effort on that. Our own Milky Way is one of 100,000 galaxies included in this cluster. So basically what that just said was the Great Attractor is the center of this supercluster, and our Milky Way galaxy is one of 100,000 galaxies included in the cluster that the Great Attractor is the center of. So like this thing is freaking huge is the whole point of that. One more couple of sentences. Acting like a galactic bully, its unfathomable gravity warps space and time and bends light. Yet it lacks an event horizon, which it would have if it was simply a black hole. This is where, again, I don't know enough about black holes and like all of that technical stuff. Although it recedes from our galaxy at a very high speed, at the same time, there is extreme measurable ultraviolet energy that suggests it is approaching. What? That's what it says. So how freaking crazy is that? That like, is it coming? Is it going? It's the center of 100,000 galaxies that like our little solar system, like we're looking at a natal chart that has like 10, 15 planets on it. Like that's only one galaxy out of like all the 100,000 galaxies. And this point is the center and it's moving at 600 kilometers per second. Like what? Like what even is that? That's where like to open up to what even is that, they're like, it's not even a black hole because it would have these properties if it was a black hole. So like that's where, you know, you can bump into fear pretty easily when we get into like spirituality and universal forces that are obviously so much bigger and outside the scope of like our small human understanding. And this is one of those for me. So I mostly like that's as far I went deeper into it just to be able to read you those couple paragraphs about what it is than I've ever gone, because it doesn't feel helpful or good to me to like go poking around in like, technically speaking, what is that? Like, why is there this giant sucking yet approaching? Like what is happening here? That turns my brain into a pretzel that doesn't feel good. So I focus back to, this is at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. The reason that this is so interesting, that Mars is on that point in the sky, is because we just had a solar eclipse on December 4th of 2021. So just like a month ago. And that happened at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. So like right next to the Great Attractor. And that really lit me up as far as like, whoa. And what they said about Mars coming back over that point now, a month later, is basically it's reactivating those Sagittarius solar eclipse energies that happened back in December. So it's like another wave of that coming through. And really the, what was I saying? Oh, yes. Really, the solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, eclipse energies in general, they play out for a long time. It's like some people say 6 months. I've seen 18 months, like a long time. Like it's going to be playing out for a while. So that Sagittarius solar eclipse that happened in December, that eclipse opening, it's going to be playing out for quite a while. And this Mars coming over that point again in the chart is just reactivating it and just like pushing it back to the top of the conversation. So I don't know about you, but I had a really awesome Sagittarius solar eclipse. It was a big flippin' deal as far as like my personal evolution and like, what am I here to do? What's my truth? How can I live that more boldly and passionately on a daily basis? How can I show up as that person who my soul intended for me to be? And so, I mean, we can also link some videos that I have around the Sagittarius solar eclipse specifically. So I have several because it was such a big deal in my personal life. Um, that's basically how you can understand the content that I make on my channel as far as like the astrological energies. I don't cover them all simply because there's not enough hours in the day. And so I pick out the ones that are like really playing hardball with me personally, like batting me around like a little hand puppet. And that Sagittarius solar eclipse, holy moly, it was huge. So I won't go into that here because I mean, like I said, I have like a couple hours worth of content about how magical it was. But this Mars over that point is like bringing all of that back to the surface. So it's worth a think as far as like, where were you December 4th of 2021 and what was going on? What opening was happening in your world and what entered at that time that maybe gave you newfound hope? It gave you a newfound sense of, yes, this does feel resonant with my true self, and I do want to show up as this person. Um, yeah, those themes are coming back to the surface and at a perfect time as far as like these other couple of things that we're going to talk about. But one more thing that I want to say about, so Mars, we've talked a little bit about Sagittarius. Now looking at the Mars side of things, Mars rules Aries. And so that's another fire sign. And Mars in general is like the divine masculine. It also talks about, so that's like one great place to mention that the divine masculine exists inside of all of us, just like the divine feminine exists inside of all of us. We all have both of them. So right now, the divine masculine, Mars, is in Sagittarius. So fire in fire. And that's a really helpful energy to, you can think about fire like burns away the obstacles. Like sometimes getting mad is like the best thing for us. Sometimes bumping into somebody who just like really gets us riled up, like maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. When you have a fire planet inside a fire sign, like, yeah, you're probably going to have bursts of passion pointing out, like, where do you want to go? What's standing in your way? Mars is also our ability to like take a stand out in the world. So Aries, Mars, very much like our warrior spirit, like that part of us that knows that like we're a spiritual warrior, all of us. Like we wouldn't have come here, not to say that life is a battleground, but like we wouldn't have come forward to even have a physical experience if we didn't have a spiritual agenda that was worth fighting for. So Mars, your unique Mars placement in your natal chart shows you like where where is your warrior spirit located? And that's a whole journey all by itself as far as like getting to know your own inner warrior. And if you're anything like me, mine was hiding and is camouflaged and looks nothing like a warrior. So, you know, good luck finding yours. That's just part of like like the lifetime evolution of learning to love our own unique energy and who we came here to be. I feel like there's one more thing that I keep saying that one more thing about Mars that I want to add, and I don't. Nope. So Mars in Sagittarius, like the fire and fire, like that ability to take a stand, combining with the Sagittarius wanting to know our truth and live our truth, to embody our own truth, which that's like a very kind of philosophical thing to say, but it would mean like, what do you believe in? And are you living in alignment with that on a daily basis? And I think one of the best things like the best example that's coming to mind is fear. Like, as humans, fear, I mean, serves a purpose. It serves an evolutionary purpose. It's part of our like survival brain. So it exists for a reason. But fear turns to suffering when we are overly afraid of things that we really don't need to be. So fear stands in our way. And fear tells us, like, it's really us telling ourselves stories about why we can't do what it is that we want to do. And this time of like Mars in Sagittarius, Mars is brave. Mars is very bold and courageous and willing to take a stand for what matters to them. And Sagittarius is wanting to live in alignment with our truth. And this whole great attractor piece of it is like, this is intense. This is intense energy. This is an intense point in the sky, period, when you have planets going over this. And with the solar eclipse in Sagittarius a month ago at that same location in the sky, this is a very potent opening and becoming. And it feels like an up leveling. It feels like charging ahead into like what you were born to do, regardless of the fears that are present. Like doing the thing and becoming who you were born to do, born to be. Human beings, not human doings. It's like, it's not so much about learning more things and like getting a degree and getting a certification and getting all of these credentials and getting all these references from all these clients, like getting all of these external validations to support you getting to do what you want. Like, so often we put so many barriers in front of ourselves that say like, I'm not ready yet, I'm not worthy yet, I'm still learning, I'm not ready to jump out and do the thing. And it's like Mars and Sagittarius, fire and fire. It's like, just jump, just jump. And like, I'll bet you money that you're going to figure it out as you go, because we're adaptive creatures. Like, at our core, that's what allows us to survive, is that we are so good at adapting. So I trust that if you just go for the thing, you will be able to figure it out as you go. And sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes it's like really uncomfortable. Like, this very first live is a perfect example of, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to show up as. Really, though, who I want to show up as is a polished professional live streamer who's like got her shit together and can do this and can flow and not lose her train of thought and is like totally comfortable in her own skin doing this. That's who I want to show up as. And I'm just not that person yet, right? Like, I'm just me where I am wanting this ability. Um, and yeah, it's hard because I'm not who I want to be yet. But there's also part of this like fire and fire, Mars and Sagittarius energy that's like, you can't you can't actually do the thing unless you charge forward and do the thing. So you have to show up awkwardly. You have to show up and like be uncomfortable. And through doing that, this is very second house, where we prove ourselves to ourselves. That is a recurring theme, I think, for most of us in our lives. Like, confidence is earned through doing the thing. Like, it's hard to say like, well, once I'm confident in myself, then I'll step out and I'll do whatever it is that I'm feeling called to do. And it's like, yeah, well, except when you step out and you're awkward and you live through it anyway, when you laugh at yourself and you're like, yeah, that wasn't perfect, but I did it and I crossed the finish line, and that's, that's something, I showed up. When you can like hold that side of yourself, that imperfect side of yourself, with compassion, that says, at least I tried. At least I didn't let the fear hold me back. I stepped out and I did the thing that I was scared to do. And I trusted myself to be able to figure it out as I went along. Like that is, I think, the main idea of this energy. So it's so cool that it happened on January 2nd with the Capricorn New Moon, Mars on the Great Attractor, all of this energy ushering in the next person, the next version. It's very much like the turning of, bigger even than the turning of a chapter. It's like, the end of this volume and we're switching into a new book. Like this is a whole new storyline that's coming, and that's so exciting. And so that turning point is very much like that Mars conjunct the Great Attractor. Like there is a massive turning point, like how it said that the Great Attractor like bends time and light. Like again, it really gets me knotted up in my brain real quick when I try to like really understand what does that even mean. But like in a philosophical, like, yeah, whatever kind of way, it means that like it bends the timeline. It's like however long it took you to get to here, that's completely irrelevant compared to how long it's going to take you to cover that same amount of distance going forward. So, it took me a year and a half to like really open myself up to speaking my truth and being comfortable using my voice and all of that. And it's like to even be able to open my mouth and speak, it took months. And so now it's like the improvement, the ability, the practice, the places where I'm fine tuning, like there's so much growth happening so quickly compared to how long it took me to get here. So showing up in whatever form we're in right now feels like the really most important message of this whole talk. So I'm glad I ended up starting with the one at the bottom. Like who knew? Who knew? Are there any questions before I move on? That's some ramblings about Mars conjunct the Great Attractor, which it was on January 2nd, 2022. Technically, because Mars takes 2 years to lap around the zodiac, this Mars on the Great Attractor only happens once every 2 years. And it is extra relevant because of the Sagittarius solar eclipse that happened back on December 4th. So definitely recommend some reflection space around not just like where were you and what were you doing on the 4th, but also like what has unfolded in the last 4 or 5 weeks since then. Because again, those solar eclipse and really any eclipse energies are going to play out for a good long while. So they are still very much at play. This whole like bringing that question to the forefront of who are you? Why are you here? Who did you come forward to be? And are you showing up as that person on a daily basis? And there's no shade in where you are. There's no judgment in where you are along that sliding scale of taking off the parts of you that aren't you. And fear is in that category. Like I was talking about Tara at the beginning, Tara Brock, like she talked about how like our light, our purity is inside of us when we get here. And it's not that we lose it as we go through life experience and we might harden because of life experience, but it gets covered over. We cover over our purity to protect it when we go through hard things. And so when we have a lot of fear or have a lot of anxiety or have a lot of self-loathing and we don't even like ourselves, like that is just layers that can be felt on top of between your consciousness and who you really are. And those layers, they got put there, the fears that we pick up along our way, they got put there for good reason. We survived some things. And in the surviving of those things, our mind is trying to protect us and blocks us off from certain pieces that just hurt too bad to face. And the thing about showing up as our authentic selves is like, it's really like on a deeper shadow work kind of basis. Like it's a process of confronting all the reasons why you're not. That's really the only thing that's keeping you from being your authentic self. And I'm like very much pointing this at myself, like talking to myself, is like all the fears around why you can't do that or why you shouldn't be that person or what everybody else is going to think, or are they going to get mad? Are they going to call me disrespectful? Are they going to call me irresponsible? Are they going to say that I'm selfish? Are they like all of these stories that we tell to ourselves about why we can't be who we were born to be? And as you'll see, like as we get into these other couple topics, like this is very much a time of opening up. Like we had a mission, we had a reason that we came here, and we can fight it and we can cling to our old stories about why we can't be that person and why we're afraid and why we're not ready. And that's fine. And you can do that as long as you want. And I've done it. I'm probably still doing it. I can honestly say 100% factual. I am still doing it on a couple of subjects where I'm too scared to let go. And this is a season where these next like really couple years, like we've had our worlds shaken through these transits that have been moving through the last couple of years. And we see we are much less detached to what is than we were 2 years ago. But we're only just beginning to like really disintegrate what does not serve us any longer, so that we have that clear space so that something new can be built. And this is an exciting time of getting to see glimpses into the future of like what is it that you're trying to build, and not just like, you know, judging who am I today and who am I able to show up as today. It's like I said, like I really don't want to show up as this awkward person. I want to show up as like polished and got it together and I know what I'm doing and like I'm good at this. Like I feel like I'm good at this. But you can't feel like you're good at it until you do it enough to be good at it. And the thing about live streaming is like to get good at it, you've got to do it in front of other people. And that's just, yeah, there's a reason I've been podcasting, I've been making videos, I've been doing Instagram lives in private mode. I've been like practicing, I've been trying to get the flow of energy to come out and be so good at flowing the energy that when I'm nervous and anxious about being on here in front of people, like they're watching me while I'm doing it, that the flow of energy, it still moves, and that I'm grounded enough in that flow of energy that I can still move it even while people are watching me, which definitely turns up the volume on like a lot of things, like how exciting it is, how fun it is, how scary it is. Like it's a whole trip, I tell you what. I'll also tell you, I haven't had nearly enough coffee in these first 37 minutes. Holy moly. Which one should we do next? Jupiter in Pisces, Venus retrograde. Let's give that a think. Jupiter in Pisces. Venus. Okay, I have a vote. Okay. That's perfect anyways, because we are very much like Sagittarius is the 9th zodiac and Capricorn is the 10th, comes right after Sagittarius. So that definitely builds. So that's cool. So all of this, what we're talking about in who are you and why are you here? That is a highly philosophical question. In Sagittarius, it's a fire element. It's a burst of creativity and passion and all of that. So, hello, Jennifer. We're going to cover Jupiter next, but thank you so much for voting. So, Capricorn, though, is where as planets progress through Sagittarius, through this like truth and lining up with your truth and living your truth, and then you move into Capricorn, where Capricorn is an earth sign. It's the cardinal earth sign. And cardinal just means that it's at the very beginning of a season. Like Capricorn is the beginning of winter. All the cardinal signs are the beginning of their season. Fixed or the middle of the season, mutable is the end of the season. So we go from mutable fire, the end of fall, into cardinal winter, the beginning of winter, Capricorn. And it's like everything that came out of this burst of creativity and passion and knowing of who our true self really is on a higher level, on a greater, bigger picture understanding. Then we go into Capricorn and we actually get to envision, like, what would it actually look like to build that in physical reality? Because that's really all Capricorn cares about, is what is the effect in physical reality. We're not going to measure anything that hasn't taken place in physical reality. So that is very much the yardstick as far as Capricorn is concerned. So as far as I can see, it's a brilliant evolution between first getting really clear on what our truth is and then bringing that clarity into the workshop and getting serious. Capricorn's a very serious energy. It's also known as kind of like the divine father, like the father figure. It is nurturing. It's the opposite sign of Cancer. Cancer, Capricorn are sister signs. They're both nurturers. They're the mother and the father, but like the mother and the father, they nurture in very different ways. The mom is like kissing your boo-boos and like, giving you a hug when you're sad. And the dad is like helping you plan for retirement, like that's the father. Very serious, very grounded in the earthly realm. Yeah. So Capricorn, as far as the Earth family goes, Capricorn is one of 3 Earth signs along with Taurus and Virgo. And Capricorn is the visionary. They can see far into the future, like hundreds of years into the future, and can sense a path backwards between this far off future that they can visualize in their mind. And then they can work it backwards from that future back to where I'm standing today. And there's my action plan. There's how you get between point A and point B. That's what Capricorn is like brilliant at doing, like reverse engineering based on a massive vision. Capricorn is the side of our personality where we came here for a reason, and there is a side of us that is very serious about doing what it is that we came here to do. And as far as Capricorn is concerned, our great work is what we came here to do. Our legacy, the impact, the ripple effects that we came to leave in the physical realm, that's our great work. And we had a sense of what those were going to be, what that path was going to yield as far as ripple effects. And Capricorn, anytime we have any planets in Capricorn, right now there are several, that's a season for getting serious about what it is that we came here to do. So that's where this is taking place. This Venus retrograde is happening through Capricorn. The other piece that's really super fascinating to bring in before we really dive into Venus and retrograde is Pluto. So Pluto is an extremely slow moving planet. It takes about 250 years to fully orbit the zodiac. And that means that it spends anywhere from 9 years to 30 years per sign. So it has been in Capricorn for quite a while, I think. I'm going to say like maybe 10 years-ish at this point. And it's been doing its thing. It's Pluto thing, where basically Pluto's job is to take apart what exists right now, scrape out any of like the toxic infection that we don't need that anymore, and then build something back together with all the pieces that are left after you scrape out the toxic part. So yeah, you build something new and different. It doesn't look the same after you take it all apart, you take out the toxicity, and then you put it back together as a healthy form. It looks very different than the part where Pluto, if it initially moves into that sign. So Pluto has been doing this Pluto and Capricorn thing where Capricorn, as far as like in the collective consciousness, represents our establishments. So the government, our countries, our like the wars between countries fit into this, like anything that we're building on a collective, bigger picture, infrastructure type setting, that falls into this Capricorn place. Another good example is our food system. So we have a highly centralized food system. And throughout COVID, there have been mass shortages. And why? Right? Like that's the natural question, is why are there shortages in the food system? And there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of different people out there explaining all different kinds of, or all different facets and sides of why there are shortages in the food system. But from a Capricornian simplistic perspective, the structure is flawed. To have a highly centralized food system may be efficient, it may save you money and increase profits, but it is not reliable when you have a kind of pandemic type crisis, mass demand. A really huge fluctuation in demand is what we saw during COVID, when people were filling their shopping carts with like $500 worth of groceries. That's a spike in demand that the food system didn't expect. And when you have a highly centralized food system, it's gigantic equipment that's super efficient, economies of scale and all of that. But pivoting and adapting and ranking up production, these factories, they already run 24/7. And they've got production figured out to a science, where they know, like, okay, it's Super Bowl, we need to crank up production. Okay, it's Christmas, we need to crank up production. It's January, people don't spend any money, we need to crank down production. Like they're on top of it, and those factories already run 24/7. So when there's a huge spike in demand, the system falls apart. So it's like Pluto and Capricorn is about showing us how good is your system. And I think we've seen through COVID that a lot of our systems have a lot of room for improvement. And that's the idea, is like, okay, so now that we see that this is not as sustainable or reliable as what we thought, we built it for a certain set of reasons. Like I said, profitability is basically at the top of that list. When you have economies of scale, you're doing it to increase profits. That's the whole point. And so we did all of this to make more money. And how did it work out? Well, 2020 and 2021 showed us that, yeah, there's not a whole lot of security in that system. There's no redundancy. And the answer, as far as I think, like in this one particular example, is something along the lines of a more redundant food supply, meaning you need a less centralized system. You need small operations in lots of different places instead of a handful of huge operations in only one or two places. Things need to be more spread out. And what that does when you spread things out is it jacks up the cost. But this whole Pluto and Capricorn season is about building something that's sustainable for the future. So if it jacks up the cost and it cuts into profits, but it's sustainable, is that not a win? Like this whole Pluto and Capricorn question is it worth it? Like, what is the real benefit in this earthly realm that we are after? Is it to make money, or is it to be sustainable? And I can tell you the highest frequency of Capricorn is to be sustainable. The whole point isn't to build a legacy. It's to build a legacy that will stand the test of time. It's like, I want to put something out there that will still be standing in 3,000 years. That's how Capricorn works. And again, we all have all 12 of these zodiac archetypes inside our personality. So we all have a side of us that can get really serious about what we're passionate about. Again, to kind of set the stage of the lower frequency of Capricorn and really Earth energy in general is materialism. And greed is another way of saying that. So Pluto and Capricorn, and as far as like scraping out the toxicity that, yeah, we don't need that anymore. What are we talking about? Greedy behavior, where money is the most important thing and we don't care about people, we just care about maximizing profits. COVID has forced us to look at, like, how important are your profits when your workforce is sick and can't show up? Like, how do your profits look right now? So maybe the workforce is a little more important than we thought it was. Like, maybe we should take a little bit better care of our workers and not so much worry about the bottom line and maximizing the profits. Like, what really is the point? And the highest frequency of Capricorn is to be sustainable. And a sustainable workforce is a well cared for workforce. So what we're seeing right now, like this is just another extension of this with the Pluto and Capricorn energies, which we still have a couple years of, by the way. So there's that. But the Great Resignation. And there is another great video. Maddie, can you please make me a note to put this one in the description? I don't think I've ever sent it to her before, but it's from Dr. K, who runs a YouTube channel called Healthy Gamer GG, which I don't know what GG stands for, but he says it sometimes. I think it's a gamer thing. But anyways, he's a psychologist or psychiatrist, and then he's a gamer also. And so he talks to gamers about like mental health and stuff. And it's very good. Anyways, so now I probably don't even know what I'm talking about. Oh yes. He talked about why the Great Resignation is happening. Like, why are people quitting their jobs? And obviously he's not an astrologer, so he doesn't put it into these contexts, but it's basically people deciding like what's truly worth it. Like, what is worth my energy? What's worth my time? Is it profitability or is it sustainability? And what we've seen through COVID, where we were locked down, what that did, it pissed a lot of people off, that's for sure. But what it also did was prove to us, you don't need money as much as you thought you did. Like, our discretionary spending for most of us flatlined. I mean, unless you had an online shopping thing going on, like the amount of money that you need to like go out to the bars and go to this concert and go on this trip and go here and buy this and do this. It's like all of that shrank and came into perspective on like, what is it that you truly need? And what a lot of people are realizing is that they don't need money as much as they thought they did. And if that's the case, then why the hell am I putting up with these working conditions? Why? Like, why would I do that if not for the money? And if I don't care about money as much as I used to, then I'm having to rethink my whole life structure. And that's ultimately what Venus retrograde is asking us to do, is rework our life structure. Dimitri, I'm so glad you're here. This is awesome. I knew all of this would just like come to life and put the pieces together, and sitting with this energy before getting to come in here and like let it out is so hard. Oh gosh, that probably wasn't nice for the mic, but yeah, it was big. And I'm like, oh, and I want to make sure and mention that, and I want to do that, and I want to do that. And I'm like, no, just breathe. That's all we're going to do right now. And when it's time, all the pieces will come together the way that it's meant to. So Venus retrograde in Capricorn with Pluto. So Pluto is a star in this show, the Venus retrograde story. So basically what happened was Venus came through Capricorn and met up with Pluto, was conjunct Pluto, and went just a teensy bit past, I believe, and then retrograde hit. And so Venus only goes retrograde every 18 months. So the fact that it landed like on Pluto, again, this just stood out to me as like, holy crap, turning point energies. I also have a couple videos. One is Venus conjunct Pluto, because we're having this conjunction 3 times over 3 months. And then I have a separate video on Venus retrograde. So we can put those in the description if you want to look back at those. But so Venus met up with Pluto, retrograde hit. Retrograde for Venus is like 6 weeks. So it's moving really slowly retrograde, like back over Pluto. It just was with it for so long. That was like right at the end of December, right? Oh, December 19th is when retrograde started. So it like got up to Pluto and was super slow then as it starts retrograding backwards. And then it's retrograde until January 29th. I believe it makes it back to like 11 degrees of Capricorn. It's in Capricorn for sure. It doesn't pop back to Sagittarius. So it stays in Capricorn this whole time. And then January 29th, it's going to go direct again, meaning forward again, and come back to Pluto one final time as it passes over and then finally enters into Aquarius. I think around the beginning of March. I think that final Venus-Pluto conjunction is like the end of February. So these energies are very much ongoing. So I highly recommend those couple Venus conjunct Pluto and Venus retrograde videos if you're wanting to dig deeper into this. So we talked about Capricorn and that is the structure of our life and how we choose to spend our energy on a daily basis. Like more than money, energy is by far our most precious asset and resource. Our time, our precious energy. There's only 24 hours in a day, and even less than that, there's only this much energy per day. That's like a whole nother topic for another day, is energy management. But the choices, the things that we choose to give our energy to are precious. It is like every single thing that you pay attention to in a day is like painting a stroke on your canvas, the masterpiece of your life. So stopping right now to ask ourselves, do I like the picture that I am painting? You know, all of this astrology work always is going to ask us to take our perspective and put it back inside of ourselves, as far as like we have control. We have control how we show up in this world. So if I don't like the picture of my life, then I should paint a different picture. I should choose different things to show up to on a daily basis. And this Venus retrograde that only happens every year and a half, but for 6 weeks at a time, this is the time then to pause and ask ourselves, like, am I living in alignment with my value system? Is basically the question that's wanting to be answered with this Venus retrograde, is, am I living in alignment with my value system? We've had so much happening around our beliefs and our values these last couple years, and we've grown, right? Like, I don't think anybody can say they haven't grown through the last couple of years. Like, even if it was painful, it still happened. So it's like, now that we've grown into this new version, the latest and greatest version of who we are, who is it? How do we want to spend our energy on a daily basis? What is the structure that we want to make? And Venus retrograde specifically, Venus is asking us, does it align with our value system? Venus rules Taurus and the second house and is very closely related to value. So again, going back to this whole question of what is most important, profitability or sustainability? And that's a very personal question, honestly. Like, there's no right or wrong answer to that. And I got to think we all fall on a sliding scale somewhere between all of these different factors, right? Like, we all have our own unique belief system. And so Venus really shines the light on our values, and because it's in Capricorn, how our life structure lines up with those values. And the pandemic, I mean, for all its faults, has been super clarifying to, like, now that we've lived these last couple years, like, now to take this pause of Venus retrograde and get to really evaluate, like, okay, so based on all the updates that have happened to my value system these last couple years, who am I now? And how do I want to show up now? And that, again, like, is a really important question, because Venus and value is tied together in a place where if you're not living in alignment with your values, inner peace is basically impossible to come to. Like, if you're, let's say, on this, profitability versus working conditions, basically sustainability spectrum, that you believe in this one, but you're going to a job because you need the paycheck. So that's not your values lining up with your day-to-day life. You believe in following your truth and following your passion, but you're still showing up on a daily basis to something that isn't that. And whether that's in your job or it's in a personal relationship, it's between you and you, right? Because, like, everything is just a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. So, like, how are we being with ourselves that even doesn't still align with our updated value system now that we've lived all this life in between? The last Venus retrograde, I think, was like May. May to June of 2020. So again, a very interesting time. For most people, the pandemic started around March. So a couple months into the pandemic, and here's a Venus retrograde to stop and take stock of like, who am I now and what actually matters? What's the most important thing? And you think about what was going on at that time with the race riots over George Floyd's murder. And so many people that all of a sudden were so clear on what actually mattered, right? Like money doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, this doesn't matter. Social equality matters. And don't quote me on this, but I want to say Venus retrograde happened. No, that can't even be possible. I was going to say Libra, but I don't think that's right. But anyways, it was like a very pivotal summer. Lots of people emerged from Venus retrograde being extremely clear on what mattered the most. And not murdering people on camera matters a lot. And we all came to that conclusion. Maybe not all of us, most of us came to that conclusion kind of simultaneously. And that Venus retrograde, like it puts things into perspective, and it has us take a good long look at what is it that you really want, because so many of us are, it's not even our fault. Like we're following the programming that has been installed, like the conditioning that is just part of growing up in any culture. It's natural that your culture conditions you. Yeah. And in the United States, which is where I grew up, the culture is very work hard and invest in your retirement account. That's the main point of what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And I don't resonate with either of those things. And so what to do? Well, you follow your own value system. So if I don't resonate with what the culture is telling me, then what does matter to me? What does my value system look like? And this is actually like a whole exercise that I did kind of back in the Venus conjunct Pluto, Venus retrograde energies really beginning in December, was to really like spend some time doing an exercise on what are my values. So values work is just time spent in contemplation about what is even important to you. And the whole point of being really clear on your value system is that it makes decisions irrelevant. You no longer have to make decisions if you're clear on your values, because as an opportunity gets presented to you, it's a simple matchup of, does this meet my values? No, then I don't do that. Does this meet my values? Yes. Okay, cool. Awesome. That's for me. And there's no laboring back and forth over what should I do? What shouldn't I do? When we're clear on our values, we just embody that, and we show up in the world as the person who will tolerate this and won't tolerate that, period. That's the end of it. So I'm going to have to maybe turn that into a quick blog post. I have the exercise written. I wrote it as part of a book that I'm pretty sure I'm never going to finish. So I should just release the values exercise all by itself because I think it's helpful. Basically, I went through tons of different websites and looked at other people's value work exercises. And I compiled 120, I want to say 125 different values. Like these are values, 125 of them that, depending on who you are, you would put them all in a different order. We all would have a different top 10 probably. But the thing is, as you go through the values exercise, the idea is you read the first one, and let's say it's self-respect. And do you value that or no? And probably a lot of us value that. So you write down self-respect. And then you go to the next one, and that is love. And do you value that? So you write it down. And some of these things are like prestige. That's a value. So feeling respected in your field, feeling like you're at the top of your field, feeling prestigious, that's a value. And for me, I didn't write that one down because that isn't really the point of what I'm trying to do. So at the end of the 125, you've written down your full, pretty close, probably not all the way, but pretty close version of your full list of values. And from there, I had like 50 things on my list. And so that's not really that helpful, like as far as this whole idea of does it fit with my values, yes or not, and just do that. And so from there, you take the 50, and I didn't really know how to narrow it down. This is how I did it. You could probably do it any way you want. But what I did was, like, again, go through each of the 50 and say, would I say this is, now that I know what the 50 are, would I say this is the top half of my values or the bottom half? And so I starred the top half, trying to get it narrowed down to like 25 on the list. And from there, I went through and was like, if I could only have 10 of these, if I could only keep 10, which ones would I have to keep in my life, and which ones could I part with, as long as I got to keep the 10 that I chose? And so from the list of 25, I was able to narrow it to 10. And from 10, I was able to put it in order. So like, I'm looking on my ideal wall over here behind the camera, and I have a list of 10 values that I like put big up on my wall so that I could see them all the time. So fascinating how our values evolve. Like they don't stay stagnant. I mean, as little as just a couple of days after I wrote that list, I was like, this should be on it. This I would bump up a couple positions. Like, you start picking it apart, and getting your values like exactly perfect isn't the point. But going through a list of 125 and coming out the other side with 10, that's a really good start as far as like Venus, like what is important to you? Like, if in a daily basis you only got to have these 10 things, which 10 are the most important? And that's all Venus wants to know. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with, well, I have a mortgage, so I need a job, so I need blah, blah, blah. Like, stop it. No, like that's a different conversation. A much more practical conversation, and necessary probably, but for a values exercise and for this Venus retrograde, leave money and all external circumstances and events out of the equation as much as you can, and just say, like, basically, when we live in alignment with our values, we can sleep at night. And when you can't sleep at night, you're doing something wrong with your day. You're not living in alignment with your values. And this whole values exercise of getting clear on like who you are and what's most important, it lets you spend your time during your days doing what's most important. And from there, you can sleep at night, because you go to bed at the end of the day knowing that I did good work today. I did things that really matter, like deeply matter to my soul on my own metric system of like what matters most. Today, I did things that like moved the needle on that measuring stick. And I'm proud. I'm proud of myself every day because I live in alignment with my values. I show up as the person who embodies these values. And so, yeah, I think like every single person is going to have their own list, but getting clear on what that list is the point of this Venus retrograde. So that is happening December 19th, 2021 through January 29th. So we're very much in the middle of it. And even after, before and after retrogrades, there's a shadow period. So like a couple weeks before and a couple weeks after, where these themes are still very much prevalent, even outside of the exact window where it's retrograde. And again, retrograde gets into more of the astronomy side of all of this, and like physically, how does all of this work in the sky? Simply, it means it's moving backwards through the natal chart. So instead of moving forwards, like from the first sign, second sign, third sign, most planets are moving forwards. When they turn retrograde, now they're moving backwards. So now they're going from 4, 3, 2, depending on how long their retrograde is, usually just a sign. So Venus is retrograding, meaning moving backwards through Capricorn for another couple weeks. And this pause and this realignment with our values, I stress it so heavily that it's so important, because it's setting the stage for basically who you're going to be showing up as for these next 18 months, like until the next Venus retrograde. So yeah, like that's pretty important as far as clarifying like what truly matters to you. And even if you're somebody who has a lot of energy day to day, it still matters because the energy, no matter how abundant it is finite, right? Like time is finite inside of each day. So making sure that we're depositing our energy into the bank accounts that matter the most, the values, the value activities that matter the most, that is where true satisfaction comes from. That's where soul level fulfillment comes from. That's where the ease and being able to sleep well at night, that's where that comes from. So this Venus retrograde period through Capricorn especially is such a great time for pausing and doing some reflection on what matters most to you. It's also a great time for getting clearer on the conditioning that we may have soaked up. So as you sit with your values and as you narrowed the list down, it's very interesting as you like, okay, so let's say work ethic. That's a really good example for me personally. On the list of values, work ethic is one of them. And old Carly, like 10 years ago, Carly would have probably had work ethic like at the very top of the list because I had a lot of my personal value, my sense of I'm valuable, tied to my work ethic. And over this last decade, I've realized that I am just one human and there is only so much I can do in a day or a year or my life. And making sure that I'm spending my time and energy in a way that lines up with who I came here to be is ultimately what's most important to me. Working really hard just to prove that I can. I mean, like I said, like 23-year-old me would have been all about that. 33-year-old me is like, I don't effing care what people think about my work ethic. As long as I feel good and I'm doing work that matters to me, that is so much more important than work ethic. So one of the websites that I found that I relied heavily on as far as compiling the list of 125 values was a guy that talked about like he does this once a year for himself. He does this values exercise where he takes the whole list and like narrows it down into what's most important to him. And he revisits that every 12 months because of how quickly our values can evolve with when we live a new life experience. It's like very informative to tell you, okay, maybe you did get what you were seeking. Is it as satisfying as you thought? Work ethic is your most important value. So here you are working 80 hours a week. Are you happy? Is it worth it? Is this the most important thing to you still? No, it's not, because now that I'm working 80 hours a week, I realize that my mental health is actually the most important thing to me. And so now that I'm like living more in alignment with prioritizing my mental health above my work ethic, it also is that much more clear of like, yeah, not just mental health, but like clear-mindedness and open-heartedness. And these are the things that are like at the top of my value system, where if I'm achieving open-heartedness in my day, then I've done good work. It doesn't matter what else I did or who saw it, who witnessed my open-heartedness. If I'm feeling it for myself, then mission accomplished in this day. So getting really clear on your values, like I'm putting a lot of words into this because I believe so passionately in it. It's worthwhile. It's worthwhile for your personal happiness and so much more. So with that, I am going to take a breath and read the chat for just a second, sip my coffee, all of that. I keep forgetting about my coffee. I have a whole thing. It's been an hour and 13 minutes. I haven't even drank it yet. I'm so blind. I gotta really lean in. Oh, Jennifer, thank you. She said, yes, I love how detailed you explain everything, especially because I am new to this and interested in learning more. By the way, I'm a Capricorn, so you definitely described me. Only buying and using what I need. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Gemini. Venus went retrograde in Gemini in May of 2020. Okay, thank you. High five. Love that you put your values on the wall. Living in alignment with your values. Yep, we got to. We got to. I don't need a bathroom break yet, but I'm going to take one anyway because I have a feeling I'm so in my head and excited that I'm just blocking out the sensations of my body. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take 5, meaning it's 11:15 right now. So I'm going to start again at 11:20 with Jupiter in Pisces. And we will spend as much time as we want on that. And from there, we'll spend as much time as we want on everything else. I am having fun. I hope you are having fun. And I will be back in 5 minutes. If you're not still here, that's totally okay. Catch the rest in the replay. There will be the chapter tabs in the description, like I said. If you are still here, though, I'll be back to party more in 5 minutes. And look I made a sign and everything. Hello. See, like that. So see you in 5. There we go. I need commercials, right? I could like get my dogs up here to like do a little dance for you or something. Um, okay, so I really thought that I was going to start with Jupiter in Pisces, like for real. And then here we have Jupiter in Pisces is the last thing we talk about. I feel like that really summarizes Jupiter in Pisces. Like we just don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. And it's a magical time. So I am so excited to get into this one. Um, Oh, yeah. So Jupiter and Pisces. The first thing I'm going to run through are these dates. So there's 3 different periods here where Jupiter is in Pisces recently. Um, May 13th through July 28th of 2021. So that was back over this last summer. And it only made it a little ways into Pisces before then retrograde started and it moved back into Aquarius until December 29th. So it's only been back into Pisces for like a week now, and it'll stay there until May 10th, and then it moves on into Aries before it starts a retrograde and eventually makes it back into Pisces on October 28th until December 20th of 2022. So that's a lot of dates, and I'm going to put those in the description. But this is interesting because Jupiter typically spends a year per sign and it goes retrograde about once every year. So, depending on where the retrogrades fall, you either get a year inside the same sign and then it moves on into the next one, or like this, where you have a year split into 3 different periods with a quick retreat back into Aquarius for a little while, and then we pop into Aries to get that started, and then we go back to Jupiter and Pisces for just a little bit more at the end of this year. So very unusual for Jupiter's transit inside a sign to be broken up like this into 3 different chunks. The cool thing about it, and this also prompted a whole excavation through my old journals, was let's go back and let's see, where were we May 13th through July 28th? And as a daily journaler, I just had to pull the books of like, okay, where were we at that time? And it was so freaking cool to see, like, to go back and like flip through what was going on at that time, because big things that were changing in my life. Like that was the initial beginning of my grocery consulting work. I believe that was also the beginning of like my first extended engagement coaching client that I took on. Yeah, like all kinds of things that happened that, much like the Great Attractor, how it bends timelines and like how long it took you to get here, it's not going to take you that long to like make that same amount of progress in the future. Jupiter and Pisces can just like out of nowhere be like, oh, here's this. And it's all there. It's all manifested. The details are all taken care of. You don't need to worry about any of it. This is a very, very like we look forward to it kind of time. Like Jupiter and Pisces is a big deal. Only comes around every 12 years. So the last time it was there was 2010. So again, it's fun, I think, to look back and see like what kinds of fortuitous unfoldings happened to you during that time 12 years ago. And then also these last couple months over the summer 2021, what kinds of things were coming into your life that, like, basically with any of these, there's so much to unpack, and part of the, like, most of the fun is figuring out like, how do I get in here? There's so much to cover. Where do you even start? So Pisces is a feminine energy. It's a water energy. The feminine signs are water and earth, or elements, I should say. The feminine elements are water and earth, and the masculine elements are fire and air. So Pisces is a water sign, so that makes it feminine. And the highest frequencies of feminine energy is where we receive, where we allow, in this case with Pisces, the universe to take care of us. And basically Jupiter in Pisces can kind of be thought of as a report card where there's a huge curve. Like, we all are going to get way better grades than maybe we deserve. But basically what it's going to be a reflection of is your ability to receive. And your ability to receive is going to be brought to the forefront. And what I mean by that is, like, how cooperative are you with the universe supporting your every move? Are you somebody who is trying to like figure out all the details and like plan it out and make it happen all by yourself so you can say you did it all by yourself? Or are you open to the universe is supporting every single thing I do, every single step I ever take? The universe has my back in that. The universe is lining up the cooperative components who are going to do the majority of what gets done. I just have to sit back and float along on my lily pad and let the universe feed me grapes, as it were. So Jupiter in Pisces, the most successful people during this transit will be the ones who have practiced their ability to relax into trusting the universe. And that is to say, basically, kind of a status update check-in with ourselves as far as like our whole relationship with our spiritual practice overall. Because ultimately, like, that's how you would have gotten there, being able to trust the universe. Like, you spent time with your spiritual practice and you have spent enough time living these life experiences and seeing that at the end of it, the universe does have your back. Things are always working out for you. Even when they look like they're falling apart, things are always working out for you. That's an Abraham Hicks classic. If there's any other friends into Abraham Hicks, let me know. Everything is always working out for us. And it's only ever us who sees it that way or not. And this Jupiter in Pisces is a time where basically the universe is like gonna show up for all of us in big ways. And that's a really cool thing to think about. Like, we all have spirit guides, ancestors, non-physical, energetic support of all kinds coming through for all of us all the time. And some of us are letting that in, and some of us are, up there with our umbrella, and all the support is just washing off because here we are needing to do it ourselves. Like, holding that umbrella on ourselves, not letting the goodness in that is already flowing. So Jupiter as a planet expands. That's like, if you've ever looked at the solar system, like, do a quick Google images search of our beautiful solar system. And when you look at the size of like all the, here's the sun, here's the earth, here's Mercury, here's Venus, here's Jupiter. It's like huge compared to all the other planets. And it's what's known as Benefic. I never like to say this word. I don't know how. Benefic. Those are my two options as far as how I think you say it. If you read it, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There are benefic and malefic planets in astrology, and I could be totally butchering the pronunciation of those. I'll have to look it up. And Jupiter is one of the benefic, which beneficial, like, that's basically what that means, is like he expands opportunities for abundance. And that's a really interesting idea. Jupiter is also thought of as like being very lucky and associated with like boosts to our wealth and our fortune and our well-being in general. Jupiter also rules Sagittarius. And so it's also kind of overlapping with that archetype as far as like very big picture oriented. So again, back to the energy of, we don't have to have all the details figured out. Like, chances are you're not going to. So getting comfortable with that space of, I know what I know, which is myself and my own energy and my heart and what I'm passionate about, what my values are. Like, I've done this work to get to know myself, and here I stand. And then there's everything else about how it's all going to come together and how the pieces will arrive and what exactly it looks like and all of these other details that basically the universe is covering all of those. So the only question here with Jupiter and Pisces is, are you holding up an umbrella or are you letting it in? And we're all going to be blessed. Like basically, we're all allowing, at least at some point, even if it's only a minute or two throughout the day, maybe when you're driving or like you catch sight of a puppy or something like really nice, there's a break in the wall and all of a sudden you're allowing, you're happy. And some of us are happy more than that on purpose because we know that that's how you allow. You open up through positivity and believing that everything is always working out for me. So I don't need to get mad. I don't need to fight with what's going on in the world. I need to sit back and relax and just watch at how the universe is going to sort this out for me. And that's really ultimately Jupiter and Pisces. Like, it's a very beneficial transit. And the power, the volume knob only gets turned up more the more we're able to allow, the more we're able to like lean into our spiritual self. And so really the depth and the heart and the meat of this conversation is in like, what is Pisces? Like, what does that really mean as far as an archetype? Because it's the 12th zodiac sign. It is the end of the zodiac wheel. After you get to that end, you go back to Aries, and that's the beginning. So Pisces is the end. And in that, it includes a little bit of all of the other signs are like accumulated as you move through each of those signs. And by the time you get to Pisces, you're at this place where you've gathered everything that you need. And the ultimate function of Pisces is transcendence. It's the part of ourselves that is too big for this physical body. It's the part of ourselves that is still connected to non-physical. It's the part of ourselves that know of us as an extension of source energy, that like knows that each and every one of us is the universe itself manifested in human form. Like, I am the universe experiencing itself in this moment. And Pisces is the side of our personality that knows that to be true. And I don't know about you, but I lived most of my life without ever tapping into my Pisces, at least on purpose. Maybe it happened every once in a while. But universal forces and trusting the universe to back me up. And no, I wasn't doing any of that. I had no time. I had plans to make and things to do. So yeah, I have only within the last like 5 years or so, 6 years maybe, like really turned into myself. And with that, like begun this spiritual relationship between me and me. And like I said back at the beginning of, our purity is in us when we come forward. Like, you can think of purity as like our soul or our gifts, our purpose in this world, the light that we came to shine. And we protect that at all costs, to the point of even covering it up and hiding it from ourselves, to where later it's hard to find. But we protected it because we came into a situation where it was threatened. We were threatened. Our safety was not assured. And so we protected ourselves. And in Pisces, it's the antidote to all of that. It's like, in Pisces, it's known as the sign of self-undoing, because it's where our physical human vessel becomes just that. It's just a vessel for our soul, for who we're here to express ourselves as this time. Pisces is a deep well. It's such a deep well. It's part of the water family. And this is a perspective from Stephen Forrest's book, the Book of Water, where at the beginning he talks about like the interconnected Earth family, or sorry, he has a book on all of them, but the water family. So Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And it's not that they are like a totem pole of like a hierarchy where Cancer's at the bottom and then Scorpio and then Pisces is at the top. it's not like that at all. It's that it's more of a triangle and like a balanced, equal parts. They each play their own role within this water family function of our life. Like, what even is water energy? Why do we have it? Each element has its own function as far as like how it serves us in this physical life. And water energy is about healing. It's about healing ourselves and others. It's like, you know, the example that he uses in that book is like there's an old woman dancing on a beach under the moonlight, and she is smiling and she is feeling the flow of her moment, and she is in pure joy and bliss. And you would never know that, you know, she's buried 2 husbands and 2 kids, and she's seen a couple world wars, and she's like, so with all of that under her belt, with all of that life experience and loss and grief and pain, how does she still be happy? How does she still dance on this beach? How is she doing that? And the answer is water energy. It's where we heal ourselves. It's where we come back from heartbreak to thriving. It's that journey of feeling our pain so that we can let it go. So water energy is a big deal. They all are. All the energies are a big deal. That's why we have them all. But water, I mean, I'm especially fond of it as far as like, it feels very closely related to my personal work here on this planet, where I have my Mars and my North Node in Pisces. So Pisces energy and this place of self-surrender to the collective, that is very much where it feels like my North Star is guiding me towards all the time. So again, doing Jupiter and Pisces, I really am excited to get to like spend some time like diving down this Pisces well, and let's see all of these different sides of it, because like with any zodiac sign, there are multiple facets. There are so many octaves of Pisces energy. So there are, and this is true for all of them. So right now we just happen to be talking about Pisces, but this is, okay, so there's shadow frequencies of each energy and there's light frequencies of each energy. And then there's everything in between. There's gray everywhere in this world. And so for Pisces, the light frequency is basically where we know, because we can feel it inside of our center. Like I can feel it right here, that like I am an extension of the universe, as are you, as is my dog, as is that tree out there, as is the mosquito, as is this planet itself. Like it is all consciousness, and in that we are all equal. We are all the same. So that is the highest frequency of Pisces, is like feeling personally the interconnectedness of all things, that you can feel the energy of other beings, you can feel the energy of animals, you can feel the energy of the planet, because we are all connected. We are all the same. We are all extensions of the same universal love, is basically what I believe, is kind of how I put it. I don't know, different words to it every time. It's fluid, but Pisces. So the highest frequency is interconnectedness with all things. And in the lowest frequency, I mean, so Pisces is known as, in its lower frequency, can be known as the martyr. And that's a word that I feel like in today's day and age, like we don't really use that word as much as it used to get used. So for me, it didn't have a quick connotation where I just like instantly understood it, but the word victim does. So victim mindset, that's basically what a martyr is feeling like you're the victim and everybody else is the perpetrator, or whoever else is the perpetrator. So Jupiter just expands, doesn't really care what it's coming into contact with. It'll expand just about anything. So Jupiter in Pisces means that it will expand for each one of us whatever octave of Pisces energy we are holding. And if we happen to be on a lower side of our Pisces energy, that comes out as feeling more and more like a victim, feeling like there are people who are preventing you from doing what you need to do in this life, that there are people holding you back, there are people confining you, that you are imprisoned in some way. Pisces, like as a sign, and I think more so the 12th house, like rules things like mental institutions and prisons, because confinement, like that is basically the gist of it. And so many of us are confined in a prison of our own making inside our own mind. And really, like the only way to get out of prison is to realize that you're in there. So the prison in this case is our thoughts, and in our ability to know that our thoughts may or may not be true. Our thoughts are a product of a lot of things. They are little more than like a gear shift in your car or like a gauge on your dashboard. Like these are tools to be used to get to where you want to go. And I know for me personally, my thoughts have been the source of a lot of suffering in my life, a lot of anxiety and depression. So knowing that I am not my thoughts, that my thoughts are present, but that I am something bigger than those thoughts. I am the consciousness and the awareness that holds those thoughts. So this Pisces place of self-undoing, where we merge back into universal energies, we merge back into the collective. We realize that the collective is really just all the cells in one big whole. There is nobody that's different from any of us. There's nobody that's separate. There's only all of us who are basically the same, with minor variations and mutations along a giant human spectrum of human behavior and emotion. And we're all here to do something different. But at the core of each and every one of us is the universe itself. So Pisces is the place where we have unconditional love and compassion for everything on site. There's no qualification needed. Every single being on this planet deserves love, because every single being on this planet is an extension of the universe itself. So there's no like, are you worthy of love? Do you deserve it? What have you done for me lately to earn my love? No, it's like Pisces is where we just know that like suffering links us all. Love links us all. We are all essentially the same. And if we differ in ideologies or belief systems, that's really okay. That doesn't have to be the divide that we make it into, where we blame other people for being the perpetrator so that we can further our own victim mindset, versus empowering ourselves to be whoever you want to be and use your own sovereignty to establish your power inside of yourself where nobody even has access to it. And then from there, open up from inside of you to the universe itself and let the universe support you. Let the universe show up for you. Believe that it will. Believe that it can. And all of this work that we're doing around our belief structure through Sagittarius, our value system through Venus, all of this is supporting now this Jupiter and Pisces transit, where back over the summer, we got a little rush of this energy. And now here we are getting another 5 months. And at the end of the year, another couple months, where the universe is lining us up with our path. And it is only a matter of, are you letting yourself walk towards that? Or are you holding on to this idea that you're separate? Where, this is, I personally have a victim mindset complex in me somewhere, where it used to be way more pronounced and now it's very small compared to what it once was, where I'll be honest, like I had to tell those stories about my own victimness, because that's where my sense of worthiness was. That's where my sense of value was. That was my explanation for why I wasn't doing better. And I had to tell those stories so that people would understand me. And it was like this whole thing about how, really, when you look at your sense of worthiness and you realize it's stories like that, it's stories about how I'm the victim, when really that's just never true. Like, we are all the creator of our own reality. We are all attracting our own reality. So if you're living a life experience, you created that. Nobody's a perpetrator. You're not a victim. We are all in the driver's seat. And the sooner we can wake up to that and realize that we are in the driver's seat, our hands are on the steering wheel. If we don't like what we're living, then use the steering wheel and turn it a different direction. Doesn't even matter, a different direction. Help yourself to live a life that you feel better about living. And this is very interesting because Pisces is a very, very passive energy. And that's also one of the shadow sides of Pisces is passiveness, like to a fault, where you would rather just avoid the conflict altogether and just not even tell the person that, because I don't want to disappoint them, because Pisces is so receptive and so perceptive that they are soaking up every ounce of emotional energy that is present. So if you disappoint someone with what you say, like you get to feel that right along with them. So Pisces by nature is a little too protective of everybody else's emotions and is a little too willing to let go of themselves in order to serve the harmony of the collective. And that side where Pisces wants to take care of everybody else and wants to make sure everybody else is having a great experience. And then at the end of that, you're the one that didn't have a great experience because you're so busy like dealing with everybody else and making sure that they're okay. And then your gas tank runs out of gas and now you're stranded by the side of the road and there's nobody there to help you. And that's where my victim mindset begins and kind of ends, is like, I am a very responsible individual. I have a lot of shadow work around my overactive sense of responsibility, and taking care of everyone else, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders is something that, every once in a while I have to like actually take the weight of the world off of my shoulders that I've, put that on there. But it's so easy to be like, I took care of everyone. And then when it's me who is the one that's hurting, is the one that's, like in need of some support, there's nobody there. And now you're telling that story about how you give and give and give and give and give, and nobody ever gives to you. And that is the kind of victim mindset that it can be sneaky, because are you right? Like, should they be there for you? Maybe. Do they owe you that? In some weird human societal construct, maybe they do. I don't know. Like it's so easy to get lost in, we feel owed other people's support because we gave our support to everybody. And when people don't show up for us, then it's like really easy to throw a pity party about woe is me and yada, yada. People don't love me as much as I love them. And this is kind of a shadow to a lot of the water energy family in general. But that is the low frequency. That's realizing that like the story that you're telling is allocating all the power to external forces when really the power is inside of us. We are the universe itself. We are source energy itself. So that relocation of our power inside of ourselves and getting acquainted with, why did we come forward? Because as a Mars in Pisces, I can tell you that I am not a fighter at all. I have very little fight in my body until it comes to fighting on behalf of the good of the collective. And because the highest frequencies of Pisces are where we can feel the interconnectedness of all things, it's where we can feel that the better we take care of ourselves, the more those ripple effects are going to go through the collective. The more we heal ourselves, that's healing that we are giving to the collective. Like the interconnectedness of all things means that if I neglect myself, really I'm hurting the collective. If I take good care of myself, I'm helping the collective, because those ripple effects, they're my impact. I don't get to have like a really conscious say in what impact I have. I can only craft my energy. I can only achieve a certain vibration and then take myself out into the world, and people are going to get whatever they get. That's none of my business. So Jupiter in Pisces is going to bring a lot of things to the surface as far as our relationship with ourselves, with our larger selves, our true self, the part of ourselves that is too big to fit inside a little human body. So if you're someone who has been practicing these things and getting acquainted with your authentic self and doing that work and going deeper, then this time is going to be a massive opening of epic proportions. Like what they keep saying on all the different astrology channels that I pay attention to is like, if you're working in spirituality or astrology or like any kinds of like you're working with mass consciousness energies, like this is going to be a massive opening in terms of even more energy flowing through your vessel. Like really for me, my spiritual practice, the point of my work on myself is trying to clear, kind of like the Pluto and Capricorn that we talked about, like trying to clear away the toxic baggage that is only taking up space and not doing me any good. It's not serving me. So like removing these things, doing my shadow work process to feel through like what is it that ultimately needs healed with this. And then as I'm able to clear those things away, my capacity for holding more light is enhanced. And the more I clear away, the more light I can hold in my being. And I will be clearing things away for the rest of my life, because my ultimate vision for what I'm trying to do is to expand my capacity to hold light beyond what it was yesterday and what it is today. I want to get more tomorrow. Like hold more light. That's what I want. And light, I mean, is love. It's universal, unconditional love. I want to be able to hold that in my being and be comfortable doing so. I want to be able to flow it on demand and be comfortable doing so. Be confident in my ability to flow universal love. Like that just sounds like the most badass superpower I've ever heard of. So yeah, this is big energy, and I don't feel like I'm done talking about it, but I've got a lot of things in the chat that I think we shall see. We shall see. I read back through them. And I drink my coffee. Oh, I might have to read this next time. Oh, wow. Awesome. Ooh. Natal Jupiter in Pisces. Oh my goodness, yes. So if you have natal Jupiter in Pisces, or the early of Aries for that matter, that means that you are having your Jupiter return this year. And if you're in the very early stages of Pisces, then maybe it touched it over the summer when it was in there that first time. Which is also just kind of a good reminder in general. Like one of the reasons that I am so like obsessed with this Jupiter and Pisces energy is because of the placements that I have personally in Pisces. And like I said, like Jupiter expands everything that it touches. So it doesn't matter what the placement is. It's just like whatever energy you got going on with that placement, it's just going to get bigger, highlighted, expanded, more to do with that in your life. And I have, so like right now, Jupiter is maybe at like 2 degrees of Pisces, thereabouts. And I have my part of fortune is at 4 degrees of Pisces. So apparently that's like a really big deal when Jupiter transits over that. And then my North Node and my Mars are both at 17 degrees of Pisces. So there's a spot later this year where like Jupiter is right at 17 and Neptune is only at like 20. So like they're both conjunct like on top of my Mars and my North Node in Pisces. So I have that on my calendar. I have this like programmed in to be able to look forward to that and just be aware of like how these energies all come together. And when you have your Jupiter return specifically, so that's every 12 years for all of us, just depends on where your Jupiter is. It is a time of like your natural superpowers being elevated. Like, and if you're a Jupiter and Pisces person, then your ability to trust the universe, your ability to surrender to the cosmos and the divine timing of the interconnectedness of all things. Like, there's so much that we want to do as humans to control the timeline. And none of that typically allows for divine timing to be at play, where the universe can bring things together so much better. Like, they can see everything. That's infinite intelligence. They know what I want. They know what you want. They know what this guy wants. They know what everybody wants. And universal intelligence can weave it all together in a way where every single person gets what they want. And honestly, like, could be my Mars, could be my North Node, could be my part of fortune, all in Pisces. But that is where I literally feel this deepening of my own surrender to, I literally don't want to control anything in my life at all. I want to take my hands completely off of the steering wheel and just let the car go wherever the car will go. Because I trust, especially with my personal North Node in Pisces, like, I trust that the more I surrender, the more the universe is going to have space to show up for me. And so I think Jupiter in Pisces is a time where we can all live into this a little bit, like deepen our trust and our relationship with the universe. This is an awesome time to like watch for synchronicities. They will be even more at play at this point. I feel like I just expect synchronicities when I go places, when I see things. Like, I hardly ever leave my house at this point. And yesterday I left my house and drove to town, and there were 3 cardinals within just like a tiny little stretch. You never see cardinals on that road. I never leave my house and then bam, like, here's 3 cardinals. That's just like, just a little wink from the universe letting you know, like, nothing major. Like, there's no like action required or anything like that. It's just a little smile from the universe to let you know, like, hey, you're in the perfect place at the perfect time. Like, don't you like knowing that? Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you for that. So yeah, it's a time to kind of like slow down, and like the Pisces vibe of receiving and feeling our interconnectedness with this power that is so much bigger than even just our soul. It is all the power of all the universes, in all the galaxies, in all of time and space. All of that power is flowing to and through all of us. And this is a season where maybe it gets a little bit easier to relax into that power and to use it to our benefit, to let it remind us of how good we are, and to use it to ultimately transcend. I started to say this earlier, and I'll add it here, but so the water family is about healing, and each of the 3 water signs plays their own part, where Cancer is about feeling. Cancer is where we feel our feelings. Like, if we don't feel it, we can't heal it. So Cancer energy, and if we have any planets there or placements there, that is all about our ability to be open to our own emotional experience. And then once we're feeling it and now we're open to it, that's where Scorpio comes into the picture. And Scorpio is like the iron stomach that can look at anything, even if it's ugly, even if it's depressing, even if it's heart-wrenching. Scorpio has what it takes to not look away and to really be with these energies, whatever they are. Scorpio is open to the full range of human emotions and the messages that those emotions are ultimately giving us. So Scorpio is where we receive the teaching from whatever emotion it is that we're sitting with. So I was just talking about this yesterday with like my guilt that I just am like a guilty person. Like, I put guilt trips on myself like constantly. And it's just funny to be aware of it and see like how often I really do put guilt on myself. And yesterday it came into focus, like, guilt is one of my most prevalent teachers in this lifetime. And I think where I'm at with guilt right now is that when it pops up, it's like, what I need, what that part of me, that guilty part of me needs, is to be reminded of my own goodness, to be reminded that I am a good person. I have good intentions. I am full of love. So if I'm doing something that I feel is bad or it hurts someone else or it might hurt someone else and I'm feeling guilty about that, like my intentions are good. And I also hold the belief that we are all personally responsible for our own emotions. So if someone is upset by something that I do or say, then I do believe that that is their responsibility to work through that reaction, that the reaction is theirs. It belongs to them, not me. Just like my reactions are a reflection of me, not them. And Pisces is a place where we want to take responsibility for the emotional experience of all living creatures. And it's not until we set ourselves free from being responsible for the experience of all the creatures that we can really ascend to a place of like true transcendence, where now we exist above the fray, where we're no longer dragged down by petty things that don't matter, our illusion of separateness with other people, that those things really don't matter. At the heart of it, we are all beings, we are all extensions of the universe, and we are all here to channel and hold as much universal loving light as we possibly can. And we're all just works in progress along that sliding scale somewhere. Um, and Jupiter in Pisces is going to be a very fun period of getting to come face to face with like, where are we now in our spiritual evolution? It's like getting to get really clear on basically like the spiritual muscles that you've built so far. Um, Faith is just a muscle. Trusting the universe is just a muscle. And the more we exercise it, the stronger we get in that area. So this is a time where maybe it's a little bit easier to exercise these muscles. And the strength that we build during this Jupiter and Pisces season, it stays. Like that strength then exists within us. That knowing of our connectedness with all things, it stays within us. So the work that we do during this time, even though it's only 5 months, like it lives far beyond just this one particular transit. Read the. So I've heard like, yeah, so I'm reading a comment that basically says, yes, unfortunately, because of the movement this year, Jupiter will stay very short time in Pisces. And that is technically true. It'll only stay a short time in Pisces at a time. But I think when you add it all up, like when you add up those 2.5 months and those 5.5 months, and then those 2 months, yeah, that's not quite a year. It's more like 10 months-ish. So yeah, that's not quite the whole transit, but it's like we're getting most of the full time of a Jupiter in a sign. It's just broken up. And you gotta wonder, like, what is the universe doing? Like, why is it broken up, right? It's all happening for us. There's no unfortunately about it. And you think about it, like, I use my own personal experience and going back to beginning of the summer last year, and those couple of months of Jupiter and Pisces, I started so many things because I was in that energy. And then Jupiter was retrograde back into Aquarius, where it spent the rest of the year pretty much until December 29th. And so it's like we got to get things started with our Jupiter and Pisces in the early part of the summer. And then we got to add 5 months of Jupiter and Aquarius to the mix. And then we get 5 months of grounding back into the Jupiter and Pisces, really getting the momentum going, getting serious about it. Yeah, it's going really well. And then we get to add a few months of Jupiter in Aries, which really cranks up the volume on what we got going on and how loud we are about it out in the world. And then we get 2 more months of Jupiter and Pisces just to really make sure that that Jupiter and Aries self, who's really loud and really argumentative maybe and aggressive and really warrior-like, are they fighting for the right thing? Are they fighting for this Jupiter and Pisces sense of the interconnectedness of all things? That like any stand that you're making, is it to lift up the good, the highest good of all that is? Is it to lift up the mass consciousness collective? Are you trying to, fight somebody and like kill somebody else in the collective? Because that's not helping the collective, like I think this Jupiter and Pisces transit being so disjointed and having the Aquarius in the middle and the Aries in the middle, and like getting to go back into Pisces for just a quick refresh before then we go all the way through Jupiter and Aries, like it feels too weird not to be totally intentional by the universe. So yeah, I mean, we haven't lived it yet, so it's hard to say exactly what's going to unfold, but it does seem somewhat deliberate is kind of what I think. So there's that. Oh, bad. You have your Jupiter in Taurus. That's where my Jupiter is. And that's super, super duper exciting because in Taurus right now is Uranus, and the North Node will be entering Taurus here at the end of January. North Node will enter Taurus and the South Node will enter Scorpio. So lots of energy in Taurus to talk about. And if you have your Jupiter in Taurus like I do and like this person does, then yeah, like that's so exciting. Ooh, somebody brought up private astrology sessions. So I do offer private sessions. I reworked them a little bit to go with doing these lives because this is where I want to put the bulk of my focus is offering these live forecasts for free where you can tune in and get the information. However, if you do have a specific question about your chart and you want to go deeper into these energies, specific to your natal chart and your unique evolution, I do have the option on my booking site to schedule either 15 minutes or 30 minutes with me. And we can talk specifically about whatever it is that you're wanting to focus on with your individual chart. Otherwise, if anybody has mass consciousness questions or like general astrology type questions, that's what I'll be doing in these live streams. My goal is to sit down every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time and talk to you about a few of the main transits that are going on. And like we see, a lot of these are long. So like we're going to keep talking about Jupiter and Pisces themes as we go through this transit. So if you think of questions, especially replay crew, if you have questions about any of these transits that are going on, I'll be back next Friday and can answer questions on the live stream if you want to leave those in the comments at any time. Oh my goodness, yes. And Maddie is saying that she has Pisces Sun and South Node. So I feel like I experience a big range of Pisces frequencies. And that is such a good point to bring into the conversation, just kind of in general, not even just related to Pisces, but like the game is not about getting to the highest frequency of whatever sign energy we're talking about, and then you just live there. And then they lived happily ever after. No, that is not how life works. That's not the point of anything. So it's about having awareness, bringing awareness to it. And for me, kind of going back to the very beginning of like why study astrology in the first place, it's like the whole goal is to make the unconscious conscious. And like I said, Pisces energy, I have a victim mindset. I can feel the interconnectedness of all things a lot of the time. And sometimes I feel like a victim. And sometimes I feel the need to defend myself and to explain why that it's that person's fault. It just is. That's true. And it never true. But sometimes that's where I am. And so with all of these frequencies, with all of these different archetypes, the 12 zodiac signs are just these different sides of our personality. There's so much fluctuation between not just like which zodiac energy archetype are we in right now, but which frequency of that archetype are we in right now? And this is not to vilify the low frequencies of Pisces or any other sign. that shadow energy and behavior, it has things to teach us. The guilt has things to teach us. The victim mindset has things to teach us. Basically, like the victim mindset one, when we're in our victim mindset, the lesson of that moment, what's trying to work its way through, is that we're more powerful than we're giving ourselves credit for. And Pisces is so consumed with mass consciousness that there is that self-undoing where you forget your own power because you're so merged with the collective energies, which is fantastic. It's a very blissful place to be. But there's a reason we're not just Pisces. We're all of them. And there's a reason that Pisces is last, where we really melt into the collective unconscious. And then what comes next is Aries. And you step right back into cardinal fire. Like, I am me, and that is what matters. And what I want is what matters. And that's what I'm going to do. And so it's a cycle. Pisces has its place. The low frequencies of Pisces have its place. Another side of Pisces, which I think a lot about, I have a video also on numbing. I think it's a podcast episode actually, but it might not even be out yet. Anyways, we'll link it in the description, where numbing is one of the shadow pieces to Pisces. It's like an escapist tendency and the urge to escape difficult things. Like, instead of facing something head on, Pisces is very passive. They're like, I'll just get high. I'll just like eat a bunch of food. I'll just get drunk. I'll have sex. There's all kinds of ways that we numb ourselves as human beings. And I am doing most of those things like on a regular basis, like numbing. This is where I like feel like I really want to like lean into this a little bit of like, there's room for all the frequencies of all the energies. Like, even numbing behavior, basically in my podcast episode, the point that I ended up coming to was, it's like a brake pedal. It's like a coping mechanism. It's an ability to control the pace of what's going on in your inner world. And sometimes the most beneficial thing that you can do is take a nap. The most beneficial thing you can do is tune out, quit paying attention to that and let it sort itself out. Right? Like, the whole point of Pisces is that we surrender to the universal forces having our back. And so what that actually looks like is a lot of waiting around for the right time. And so what are you doing in the in-between times? Like, are you frantic? Are you restful? Are you chillaxed? Are you like marinating in the interconnectedness of all things? Most of us are like, when's it going to happen? What's it going to look like? What am I supposed to do? What's it for? What am I doing? What's my purpose? Like, hammering away at it. And like, that's not letting universal forces line it up for you. So Pisces has like all of these different facets as we like swim down the well of Pisces energy. There's so much to it, and there's room for all of it. And it all has something to teach us, because even in numbing and escapist tendencies, like, those are kind of vilified, honestly. Like, when you really hang out in the astrology community, like, they're like, beware of Pisces, like escapist tendencies. And I'm like, what's so wrong with that? Like, what's so wrong with swimming around in your fantasy land for a little while? What's so wrong with like getting drunk every once in a while and like letting that pressure relieve itself for at least a little while, that escape? Like, what is so wrong with that ultimately? And I don't think anything. I think it kind of comes back to this idea of, and I think this was a Dr. K thing that I doubt he made it up, but this is where I heard it, was it boils down to the difference between use and abuse. So there are creature comforts, things that we do to help ourselves feel better in the short term, that are necessary coping skills for being in this physical life experience that's hard, and things come at us and we need to help ourselves bounce back. So a lot of those numbing things could fall in that category of like, yeah, go out for a drink, or hang out with your friend, or like go have sex with your partner, or like whatever. Like, that is an escape from a bad mood, from a bad minute. And I'm going to just go over here and do this thing that I know is going to make me feel good. And doing that in that moment, there is nothing wrong with that. The part where Pisces can get tricky, and it's almost like quicksand a little bit. It's like, if you run across quicksand really quick, you only do that once every great while, it's no big deal. If you go and try to stand on quicksand, like live there in that behavior, doing that thing all the time, like eventually you sink and you lose yourself in it. And now it's like that thing has consumed you and you no longer have autonomy separate from the thing. And that's where like you're self-undoing, like you've merged into the thing. Your whole identity is that. And for me, this was very interesting. It was after the Jupiter in Pisces, right after that, when Jupiter moved back to Aquarius, where I gave up drinking. And I didn't like consider myself an alcoholic, but I was drinking every day and I was having at least a couple beers every day. And I was like, I don't think I like this. I think this is like the abuse side of it, where why do I have to do this every day? Like that's where I think there is a place for numbing in this spiritual conversation. Do it if you need to, whenever you need to, as often as you need to. I say go for it, and hold some awareness around how often are you needing to numb yourself from your life? And if it's all the time, then why are you living that life? Like, what is missing? What is standing in your way of being able to be there and be fully present inside your moment? Like, why are you needing to numb yourself on a daily basis? Like, there's no judgment in that question. It's just interesting, like going back through the Pluto and Capricorn and Venus retrograde and all of the Sagittarius energy. Like, why are you living a life that you need to numb yourself from every single day? That's worth pondering if that's where you are. And it's also interesting to note that, you know, basically where I've come to on the drinking thing, just as an example, is like, it's not that I don't drink. Like I have, like the most I've had since then is like 2 beers on the same day. And I've drank maybe like 5 or 6 times in the last like 5 or 6 months. And typically I'll have a beer or even half a beer, split it with somebody else, because I do genuinely like the taste. And I do like a nice little brain buzz. Like I have a lot of Pisces, a lot of Gemini energy. Like I like a little brain buzz, call me crazy. But it's 5 or 6 times over 5 or 6 months. Like there's part of me that thinks it's just as dangerous to say like, I'm never drinking. Drinking is bad. To be that dogmatic and fixed inside of a belief and to not allow any spontaneity, any flexibility. Like I think that's just as dangerous of a path as like drinking every day. So I think they're kind of the same. Like to be extreme in it, either direction, is like not allowing for the flow of just what's going to unfold. If you feel good on a daily basis, then chances are you don't need to numb yourself. So it's not about like, oh, avoid the numbing behavior and don't do that. Don't do the Pisces escapist thing. No, do it as often as you need to. But if you're doing it all the time, it's worth an ask about like, why do I need to do this all the time? Like, you know, looking around at your job being like, is everybody this miserable? Just me? Am I the only one that has to go home and drink 5 beers after work every day? Because that's what I'm doing. And I don't think I like myself like this. I don't think I like the amount of stress that I bring home at the end of the day, where the only thing I think about it the whole way home, the first thing I do is go to the fridge, open like, and crack open a beer. Like, that's a problem. That's not a numbing behavior problem. That's a why are you going to work at that job every day problem. So I personally think numbing and escapist tendencies get a really bad rap. I think they have their place. Our fantasy world is a survival mechanism. But if you're living there instead of the physical world, it sounds like your physical world needs an upgrade. So that's like my 2 cents worth on that. You guys are so active in the chat, and I love that. It's a lot to keep up with. Oh, Astrology for the Soul from Jan Spiller is an awesome. It is awesome work for the North Nodes. Ooh, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out too. Maddie, let's put that book recommendation in the description. Audible version, I'll definitely be doing that. I don't read. I'm not much of a reader. I'm a listener. Listen to like 5 things at once usually. When I sister is North Node in Pisces. The book above fully describes her, and I kind of push her to similar push you like path, like what you do. North Node in Aries. Ooh. That's significant past life karma around relationships and whatnot, and like losing ourselves to relationships. And like even North Node in Pisces, like what I have, like it's so crazy how, you know, we all want to know what our purpose is and we all want to like lean towards the North Node end, but like the South Node end is, I think, like most of our purpose is dealing with the crap that's on the South Node end. Because yeah, for me, that's Virgo, and that guilt that I'm talking about, that teacher, like that Virgo that wants to manage all the details of all the things for all the people all the time. And you're only one human being. There's only so much you can do. So like realizing your physical limitations and realizing that like you're not a failure if you're not doing all the things, like there's so much healing on the South Node end that kind of like we were talking about, like clears away the old toxic baggage to create space so that you can hold the light that your North Node is asking you to develop. So I am a node nerd, and the nodes changing signs here pretty soon. They are at 0 degrees right now of Gemini and Sagittarius, meaning they're just about to move into Taurus and Scorpio. I think that's like January 22nd, I want to say. So we'll definitely talk about it here pretty soon in these upcoming weeks. And then probably a lot, I also have a video about that for North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, and breaking free of past pain is ultimately what this transit is about. It's 18 months long. It's a purge through our Scorpio energies and a building of our North Node energies. And there is so much personal healing work that can happen during this upcoming transit that ultimately the goal is to point us back to our own natal South Node and continue purging through our own natal South Node so that we have the space and the openness to build our own natal North Node. So even though the nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, that is just kind of a practicing ground, if you will, to build our own personal skills, whatever our natal nodes are doing in our own personal chart. So we'll get a lot more into that as we get a little closer to that kicking off. But the video is already on the channel. If you do want to check that out, it'll be in the description, along with about a million other things, apparently. Yeah, so I think, let's see. Yes, the drinking, the Mars and Pisces problem. You maybe in the past had one time when you felt very, I have something like right in the way of my chat and I can't see. Yeah. Yeah. The escapist tendency, the passivity of Pisces, especially Mars, where Mars and Pisces, like Mars is our warrior spirit and Pisces is the passive energy where we don't even have a sense of self. It's just the collective consciousness. So like, where's my warrior spirit again? That's what I said way at the beginning about how my warrior is like in disguise and camouflaged and like hiding. And so for me, tapping into my Pisces energy was huge because my Mars is also there. So my ability to stand up for myself, to take a stand in the world, to feel confident about asserting myself out into the world and making myself take up space and be physically present and accounted for, like all of that feels really scary until I let myself melt into the collective consciousness. And I feel very much like these live streams and really all of my work is an embodiment of that Mars and North Node in Pisces, where really what I'm trying to do is give a voice to collective consciousness, and these collective energies of these transits and all of that. Like it is only in the service of the collective healing that my personal healing journey ultimately serves collective healing. And that's what I'm here for. That's the Pisces Mars in action, is I am willing to take up space in this world if it means that the collective consciousness gets greater healing. So it's less scary to like step out and do what you need to do when our Pisces connection to the universe is strong. So this Jupiter and Pisces transit, oh, it's good stuff. It's so good. So many possibilities. I cannot wait to see how it unfolds. Already off to an amazing start, I would say, with these live streams. We're coming up on 2.5 hours. I think that's pretty respectable for this first one. Like I said, I think it could go anywhere from like an hour to 4 hours. That's my best guess, with never having done them before. So I think we did good work today here with understanding and unpacking these energies so that we can really work with them and be aware of them as they unfold for each of us personally, and to do the Pisces thing where we bring compassion to ourselves and to each other, where we realize the similarities between us all instead of the differences. We focus on love and let that lead the way. I think that's ultimately how to get the most out of life in general, maybe. But for sure, this Jupiter and Pisces transit. So thank you so much to everyone who took the time to be present in this space. I so appreciate you, whether you were here physically present while I'm doing this, or you're catching the replay. I think it's ultimately in service of the collective that we are choosing to show up in this space, and really any space where we are practicing knowing ourselves better, loving ourselves better, which ultimately leads to being able to love each other better. So thank you so much for all of the work that you do in all of the spaces, to clear your soul and hold more light. I will be back here every Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time, with a new round of transits and signs and archetypes that we can unpack. By all means, bring your questions, bring your coffee. Yeah, this is for educational purposes. We are here to learn. And if there is something that stands out to you that you would like an individual session, again, you can find that link in the description of this video. As far as scheduling, I'm taking those appointments on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So there's that. And whether you want an individual session or not, please, if you could, leave a like on this video. It does a huge service to the content on YouTube so that more people can see it. And yeah, like I said, hopefully these ripple effects of healing mass consciousness can make it that much further out into the world. So I think that's all I got for this day. 2.5 hours worth. That's not bad. Ending these things, landing the plane, that's always the hardest part. So I am going to put my finger on the button that called end stream. And I'm going to say, thank you so much, dear friends, for listening. I hope you take such good care of yourselves. And until next time, I got the order of that all wrong. So yeah. Okay, bye.